Ah! What's up everyone, I'm the CloakingDonkey, answering the question, what is Cloud Pirates and why should you care? Cloud Pirates is a lobby vehicle shooter by the Allods team. If you've heard of Allods Online before, you will already kind of know how this game is going to look. Very much a comic-y art style and kind of a steampunk slash magitech punk version of Soviet Russia and Tsardom Russia. But where Allods Online is an MMORPG and deals with you playing a character, Cloud Pirates is all about the combat between the astral ships that the Soviet-like Zadeganians and the Tsardom-like Kanians throw against each other in eternal conflict. The game is published by My.com and will of course be on their launcher alongside Allods Online, Armored Warfare and Skyforge. And the game is currently in closed beta and we only ever get to play a week at a time during certain time slots. It's still very early on, but I'm sure the tests will open up as time goes by and there will be an open beta and all those sorts of things. If you however can't wait, you can already buy your way into the beta with one of the Founders Packs, as you know from all the other early access titles of the last couple of years, and then you just have to wait for the next beta test to start, which I honestly am not sure when it's going to be. I really hope it's going to be sometime this year, but the last beta test only just ended a week ago. Anyway, if you want to know more about any of this upkeepy stuff, go to pirates.my.com and you'll find it all there. Now let's move on to the actual crux of the game. So as I said, we're talking about a lobby vehicle shooter in the veins of World of Tanks and Armored Warfare, where you command a flying tall ship. So imagine the Age of Sail, but instead of sailing the seven seas, you are sailing the endless skies with your flying sailed tall ship. And just like in any good lobby shooter, these ships are classified into several types. There are heavy, medium and light ships, and they come in several different classes, such as battleship, cruiser, support, engineering, clipper, frigate and sniper. However, the classifications really are not quite as clear-cut as that. There are definitely some differences between different ships of the same type. After you have selected your ship of choice, you hit the battle button and are thrown into the matchmaking, and will find yourself in a Cloud Pirates team battle. Currently there's only PvP available, but there are many different game modes depending on the maps that you are thrown into. Currently in the beta there are already quite a few different game modes, which I personally found very exciting, as a lot of these other vehicle lobby shooters generally come with very few different game modes, but a lot of different maps. At the time of this recording there are Deathmatch, which is exactly what you would think, Payload, where both teams have to capture points, and whichever team captures the points spawns a giant ship, and that ship has to be destroyed by the enemy team. Domination, where both teams war over 3 capture points, and Treasure Hunt, which is sort of a capture the flag, with 3 colored points on the map, and then treasure spawns randomly across the map and is also color coded, and you have to pick that treasure up and bring it into the corresponding color circle. A very fun game mode and slightly original, and so far definitely my most favorite game mode in the game. But now we have the first departure from a lot of the other lobby vehicle shooters, in that when you die, you're not out of the match. You respawn after about 10 to 15 seconds and can rejoin the fight. Battles don't end when the entire team is destroyed. The only time a battle ends is when one team has filled up their points, or if the time limit for the battle has run out. Points are awarded for playing the objective and for killing enemies, so if you want to just go out there and kill a bunch of enemies, that can still gain your team quite a lot of points if you manage to rack up a good cricket score of kills. But if you're in a smaller, more agile, supporty kind of ship, you can still just play the objective and absolutely destroy in the experience score later on. Because capturing objective points for your team actually rewards a lot of experience and credits. And you probably expected that, because experience and credits is sort of the standard of how these games work, and Cloud Pirates is no exception. After the battle, you are awarded a certain amount of experience and credits based on your performance. You also get a little bit of free experience, which is just what it sounds like, and also probably expected from everybody who's ever seen any wargaming, lobby shooter, or armored warfare for that matter. And you use the experience points and credits to upgrade your ships and to buy new ships. Customizing your ship works pretty much the same way it does in other lobby shooters. You have 2 weapon slots, one for broadside cannons and one for bow cannons, and you can equip an assortment of different weapons into each of these slots. Then you also have different upgrade slots in your hull, your engine, your steering, and your shields. But the one thing that is slightly different is that every ship also has an assortment of modules that can be equipped to the ship and only to that ship. They have to be unlocked specifically on every ship individually. And these modules unlock abilities that you can use in the game besides your standard weapon loadout. And they really make the experience playing each ship quite unique. And when I said earlier that even within the class of ship there are a lot of differences, this is where those differences really come about. For example, the first tier engineering ship has a module that is a support turret that reduces damage taken by teammates in a certain area by 25%, but also increases their damage done by 25%. A very, very powerful module, but it is only available on the first engineering ship. The following engineering ships in the line have other modules that they can use instead. This offers even more variation in the gameplay than these lobby shooters generally already do, with having all the different vehicles that always have slightly different parameters. The modules make sure that even within a class you can have different playstyles and make them interesting by making the differences active abilities. As I said, the game is still in an early beta stage, so a lot of this stuff about the different tech trees and everything can still change over time, but for such an early stage in the beta, there are already quite a lot of different ships available to play. Now, unlike games such as World of Warships and World of Tanks, Cloud Pirates is a little bit more fast-paced and on the action-oriented side of things. That, however, doesn't mean you need some crazy twitch skills and need to be able to 360 no-scope like a crazy person. No, it's still more methodical than your everyday first-person shooter, and it's still more about tactics and ways of approaching the enemy than it would be in, say, Call of Duty. But compared to World of Warships, it is definitely more arcadey. However, personally, I think this is to the benefit of Cloud Pirates, as I really never felt that like there were any dull moments. Games like World of Warships do tend to have certain periods in the game where just nothing much happens. You know where you have to go, and you're really just waiting to get there. And I really never had this feeling with Cloud Pirates. I was always doing something or making a decision to go somewhere, and then arrived there within maybe 10 to 15 seconds. And now for a basic rundown of the current ship types, just so you have an idea of what you can expect gameplay-wise from Cloud Pirates. So you have your battleships, which are really hard to maneuver, but very, very heavy damage, rather short range though. Big, nasty with lots of hit points. Snipers are also big and heavy, very hard to maneuver, but they have very powerful bow cannons with insanely long range, the longest range in the game, as you would expect from a sniper, but they are very, very vulnerable to close-up fire and usually get taken out by lighter ships pretty easily if they get caught out. Cruisers I would put a little bit in the jack-of-all-trades category. They have short-ranged weapons usually, but there's also some with longer-ranged weaponry, but they are in general a bit more of a support role ship. More maneuverable, less damage than a battleship, but all round pretty decent. You have your support ships, which are entirely focused around healing, so if you wanted to always play World of Tanks, but heal your friendly tanks instead of dealing damage, you can do that in Cloud Pirates. Engineering ships have a wide array of support abilities, ranging from gun turrets to healing turrets, to all sorts of other knickknacks that somehow support the team and buff other people's damage or reduce the damage they take. But you yourself really do need a little bit of support because you're not that strong at face-up brawling. Torpedo clippers are the lightest ship in the game, very fast, very maneuverable, and incredibly powerful bow weaponry, torpedoes. But their broadside armament is generally complete garbage, but they are very lightly armored and have very few hit points in both hull and shields, so if they get targeted by tracking weapons, they usually get taken out pretty quickly. Frigates are kind of in between cruisers and clippers. With all of the benefits of being a clipper, you know, they're still pretty fast, not quite as fast and maneuverable as a clipper, but still fast enough to zip it around the battlefield, but they are a little bit hardier. Obviously, that would be too overpowered if they also had super strong torpedoes, so they generally have less powerful bow weaponry, but slightly better broadsides, which makes them a little bit more brawl capable. And they generally specialize in a lot of disruption modules and AoE modules. There's a few other ship types that are somewhere in between, like the battle cruisers, which are slightly more maneuverable battleships with less DPS, and then there's also engineering ships that are light ships, and then there's also support ships that are medium ships, and all of these different things that I really hope they expand on in the future. I think this game has vast potential when it comes to gameplay variety. Let's face it, what people really like about World of Tanks is that there's so many different tanks that are all different, they all play different, they all act different. No two medium tanks are quite alike, and that's also what Cloud Pirates provides. A vast array of different ships that are all really fun to play and all very different. Now, I think this game is brilliant, and I absolutely recommend that you go and check it out when the next beta test hits. There's always some giveaways, and maybe I can get some keys for next time as well to give away. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. But until then, I've been the Cloaking Donkey, and I'll see you in another video!